boxing world. This video is going out to Terrell C. I thank you for your request and for participating in the channel. The fight that he mentioned is a unique one. It's one of my favorite fantasy fights that I ironically haven't done yet, but it is Floyd Money Mayweather versus Pretty Boy Floyd Mayweather. He's fighting himself basically. And I will say that in so many ways, it's the same person, but different fighters. His style has changed over the years. So we're putting his past self against his present self, or the most recent version of himself. And I'm sure most fans have thought about this. Both fans have contemplated, who would win between the two versions of himself. Let's talk about Pretty Boy Floyd. I say that Pretty Boy Floyd, aka Younger Floyd, was more explosive. He hit harder at the lighter weights, and he was quicker, of course. You have more speed when you're younger, typically. And he was more explosive. Whereas Floyd Money Mayweather was more disciplined. He was more calculating. He was more cautious. And I'll say that he had to be at the higher weights, because the higher you go up in weight, the harder the guys hit. So I will say that Floyd was good. Either version of Floyd is good and is legendary. I loved both versions of Floyd, but the versions are in fact different. So here's my thoughts. I've read a lot of comments from a lot of posts on different forums, and more people pick Pretty Boy Floyd over Money Mayweather. And it's probably because, it is because of the things that I mentioned, being more explosive, throwing more punches, being more quicker, and the footwork was better, of course. But I say Money Mayweather because Money Mayweather, as I mentioned, was more calculating, but Money Mayweather won the fights more with his head and more with his ring IQ and boxing smarts. So it wasn't so much the physical part, although he has the best conditioning in boxing, in my opinion. So his conditioning does play a significant role in this, but he was just a thinking man in there. He knew exactly what to do. His opponents were the bulls, and Floyd Money Mayweather was the matador. I think that Money Mayweather sat down on his punches a little more. Money Mayweather was a little more relaxed in there because of the experience. Young Floyd, Pretty Boy Floyd, he was explosive, but he was a little more high-strung, whereas Money Mayweather was a little more laid back. Money Mayweather barely came forward. I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel that Pretty Boy Floyd pressed the attack a little more than Money Mayweather, which is fine. But, at the end of the day, it comes down to preference. But for me, I just love the super technical side of boxing, the nuts and the bolts, the fundamentals, the discipline, the defense. I love the purist, and that type of style is not boring to me. It's very exciting to watch to me. And Floyd Money Mayweather has never been in a boring fight, in my opinion. Neither has Pretty Boy Floyd. I have to remember they're the same guy. They are. But both versions of Floyd was great. But if you were to somehow separate the two and get them to fight one another, I truly think that Money Mayweather takes Pretty Boy Floyd to school. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think, and I will see you on the next video. Floyd versus Canelo. Canelo versus Floyd. Floyd beat Canelo. Floyd schooled Canelo. Floyd embarrassed Canelo. Floyd versus Canelo. Canelo versus Floyd. Now, before I continue with the point that I'm trying to make here, I'm a big Floyd fan. Floyd is an inspiration to me because of how he became successful, hard work and dedication. And I'm probably Floyd's biggest fan, if you want the honest truth. I love me some Floyd. But what I don't like is how people use the Floyd fight to discredit Canelo. Anything that Canelo accomplishes or tries to accomplish, people try to use the loss to Floyd to cancel that out. Well, for one, the fight happened about 10 years ago. I'll have to go back and see what year the fight actually happened. Of course, I watched the fight, but there's a few things that we're not considering. For one, Canelo was an up-and-coming fighter fighting the best fighter in the world at the time. Losing to Floyd is not the end of the world. Everyone lost to Floyd. So what's the big deal? And everything ties back into this undefeated obsession, which I try not to get into. I can't make any guarantees. But the guy, speaking of Canelo, Canelo had a loss. One loss to the greatest fighter in the world nearly a decade ago. But they want to keep throwing that in his face. They want to keep throwing that in the face of his fans just to discredit him. Yes, Canelo took Floyd to school. Yes, he beat him. But that fight was a blessing for Canelo because it gave Canelo notoriety. And Canelo became a much better fighter as a result of that fight. So that's why I always say the O is not always the most important thing. Sometimes the best thing you can do is lose. That loss to Floyd gave Canelo so much as far as notoriety, skills, experience. And after the Floyd fight, you can tell by the way Canelo started fighting afterwards, you can tell that Canelo did his homework. You can tell that Canelo took that fight and built upon that loss. So I just wish this dumb obsession with being undefeated would end, because it's just that dumb, stupid. And I wish there was a better word for it, but sometimes it is what it is. And I wish that these fans would stop it. Just stop it. Okay? The fight happened nearly a decade ago. Canelo is not even the same fighter. Canelo is so much better. Canelo eventually came into his own. Now he's the man. Like it or not, he's the number one pound for pound fighter. It's not a popularity contest. It's about accomplishments. And Canelo is doing it. I mean, we may not agree with the way he does it all the time, but the fact is he's doing it. And these other fighters have to step up. So you can't use the Floyd fight. You can't use a fight that happened nearly a decade ago to discredit Canelo. I mean, it's just reaching at this point. Sometimes it's just easier to give credit where credit is due instead of coming up with these outlandish excuses. There's always a conspiracy theory surrounding Canelo. Just give the guy his props. I'm not saying that you have to be a fan. I'm certainly not a fan of every top fighter, but keep everything within the realm of reasoning. You know, the hate is just reaching an all-time high. You want to criticize him? Fine. You don't like certain things that he does or any other fighter does? Fine. But at least be fair. At least be reasonable. And let your reasons be within the realm of reality. Canelo is the top guy right now until someone knocks him off. And if these guys want to fight with Canelo, then they have to build their own fan bases. This sitting around waiting for the big payday, stop it. It's played. Stop it. Charlo, Andre, Benavidez, fight each other. Fight other top fighters. And you will increase your chances at getting that Canelo payday. But sitting around with your hand out, complaining about being ducked, that's not going to get you to fight. And sitting around, that's not showing Canelo anything. Oh, that's really showing him I'm going to sit around until he gives me a fight. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Please let me know what you think. I'm sure you will.